Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Jackson County Board of Education work session for the month of October. It's hard to believe we're this far into the year, but here we are.
It's hard to believe, it's right.
So, all right, Dr. Howard,
all right.
call the order and turn it over to you.
All right, we do have quite a few things on the agenda tonight, so we'll be as concise as we can. Want to send a very special appreciation to you all for allowing us to delay the work session 1 week. We're getting some positive feedback that the fall break was appreciated, and I hope that we've gotten a good bit of feedback already, but we're going to be working in the next couple of weeks to bring to you in November a 1920 calendar. So we wanted to wait and see how the first break was, and we've had a great start so far. I've been very busy. I just want to give you a couple of updates, and I'm going to ask if Mr. Summer would go ahead and bring forth. As you know, at our last board meeting and work session, we began the process of synthesizing our community-based accountability feedback. And so we have continued with that work. We have met with 2 student advisory groups at two of our, we've been to East High School and West Middle, and then we'll be going to Jackson County High School and East Middle in the next few weeks to get their feedback on this same process. But in this process, we're very interested in building out a true community-based accountability system. So I just want to keep this on the forefront of your mind. I do have a short few slides I want to share with you. I'm going to let you go pretty quickly and just remind you, Mr. Summer, scroll on down, that as you know, Mr. Nicholson's going to speak to our advanced ed meeting that's coming up in March. It's actually a review, and so this is our 5-year review, and so a part of our strategic plan is to truly reflect on what we've accomplished and what we want to go forward with. So that's just a reminder. You can scroll on down pretty quickly, Mr. Summer. I probably should have got me a little thing. Keep going, keep going, keep going. So just a reminder so that you're aware, part of my reason for doing this is to make sure as board members you are completely familiar with the process, so that when we have our advanced ed team here, they'll be interviewing you, they'll be talking with you, they'll ask you questions about how do we get feedback. Well, here's the beginnings of the feedback process that we started this year. As you know, we had those 2 meetings early in August. We had our online survey, and then we had you all with our Parent Advisory Council synthesize that feedback. And so that was a great experience. And you can go on down. That's just a reminder of the handout. We thought this was very interesting, and this was kind of 2 highlight slides that we pulled out based on all the feedback that we had. The things that folks valued the most align beautifully with the work that we're doing. And so maintaining rigorous academics as well as helping kids find their passion, and then work-based learning and authentic learning skills was a highlight. That's based on the survey data. And then of course there we said, if you were going to measure one thing outside of testing, what is it that you would want to make sure was a value-added skill that our students had? And the number 1 skill, which is, I think we could all agree with easily, is their ability to effectively communicate. And so that then becomes a part of our accountability system. How then do we make sure that we're embedding that in what we do? And the second highest area there was participation in work-based and authentic learning experiences. So those are things that we're already focused on, but that feedback validates our vision and focus for what we're doing. So just a reminder, scroll on down, Mr. Summer, if you don't mind. This is in your packet for you. Excuse me, this is not in your packet. This is an EBoard, and this is a summary of what we've already discussed, but I wanted you to see this because what we did then is take all the feedback that we got from those groups thus far, and these are the common trends that we saw within the feedback, and you can read those. Effectively communicate, authentic learning, life skills, technical skills. And then the next slide shows you a synthesis of how it was prioritized. And so we're now, you'll scroll on down, we're now going to take that information and take it back to these advisory groups and say, okay, what are the measurables? If it's important that we want students to effectively communicate, how are we going to measure that? And what task or what performance evaluation are we going to put in place? And all of this is really like a 2-year process that we'll be going through, but our feedback that we've gotten so far from our community and from our students has been pretty powerful, and the really exciting thing is it's aligned. They all agree. So just wanted to keep that on the forefront of your mind. Don't want that to die. And Dr. Jones is here tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about some measurables that we look at in high school and measurables that we look at in elementary and middle school. CCRPI data is beginning to roll out, and while that's the state's evaluation system of accountability, that's just one small component, and we're trying to build a more robust evaluation system that really values what our community values. So didn't want you to let that fall off the radar screen. That's just kind of a summary there. The next piece that I'd like to share with you, you're probably asking, we're missing some folks at the table. Mr. Gilbert is not with us tonight. We want to send a hello out to him if he's tuning in. Hopefully he's not, because he's in Italy. He's celebrating his 50th wedding anniversary, so he deserves to be in Italy. Yes, he does. It's not that one, Mr. Summer. It's the next one. There should be two. There you go. Thank you, sir. But we have worked, Anna, myself, and several others have worked on beginning to prepare for making sure that our community is informed about the bond that we'll be bringing forward. We simply, as you know, are here to share facts and help people understand what we're trying to accomplish. So I have definitely put in your packet a copy of a beginnings of an internal stakeholder presentation. We will be visiting all of our schools between now and December to make sure all of our internal stakeholders understand the goals of what we're trying to accomplish with bringing forth a bond. We've kind of established a hashtag of building for the future, and so we are partnering with a steering committee that will, in the community, that will take the lead on this, and they've already begun work. They are securing a website so that there will be a building for the future website where folks in our community can go on and look for information about the bond, and so that's a work in progress. So I won't read all of this to you, but I felt like it was very important that you were aware that we're looking at these frequently asked questions, and we're trying to make sure that our community understands our goals and what the outcome is for attending to the growth that's coming in our entire community. So would you like to go through these, or would you prefer just use them as a reference? Okay. I think once you read through them, you'll be able to see. And honestly, this is a draft. Nothing is out. Certainly it's public now because the media is here and this is an open meeting, but if there's anything that you feel like we need to add to this or potentially revise, look over it carefully if you don't mind, and because technically this referendum is brought forth to the community from our Board of Education, so you need to feel a great sense of comfort with what we're communicating here. So this is our start. You charged us with coming up with some information, and so this is a good start, and we're going to start with internal stakeholders. We've developed a steering committee, and we'll have those folks ready to launch a website in the next couple of weeks, and then our goal is for that committee to really work on external stakeholders December through March, and probably really kick off strong in January. Okay, so that's the work that's ahead. Then the last three items are pretty simple. Just a reminder that your vice chair, chair and vice chair elections. I put the policy in here because last year I think the board, in the past couple of years I think, have actually done those in January. Because we have a board transition, I wanted you to revisit that policy, and if you want to make any change to that policy or you want to honor that policy, that this is the time to do that, because it would need to, a revision would need to be attended to by November if you want to follow through with this policy, or that's the wish of the board. So it's either it's an election process for chair and vice chair in December, as this policy indicates, or it is in January when you have the new, and you'll have 3 new board members in January. So you all might want to discuss that and determine, based on the policy that's sitting now, it says that we will vote before the close of the year. We did in January last year.
Well, we haven't, because I know before I came on the board it was done. Yeah, I think there's been several other times, but I know that one for sure because I was brand new and I recall that.
This policy, as you see, says the chair and vice chair of the board are elected annually at the last regularly scheduled meeting of each calendar year by majority vote. So we if we're going to, and quite honestly, we didn't follow this policy last year because the board chose to do it in January. So we need to make sure that we either amend the policy and do it in January, which we can still do, that's up to you all, or we follow the policy that exists. So I will let you all discuss that and get back to me on that. Dr. Blankenship will be able to give you in the next couple of weeks the evaluation, but the plan, as usual, I think, is to do the superintendent's evaluation in December. So just wanted to prepare you for that. And then, okay, and then the training plan. for FY19 is there, and you can see we've got our 3 new board members going to new board training in November. We are grateful to them, and just a reminder that we have reserved November 27th again with Dr. Cook for our 3 new board members with Mr. Cronick and Ms. Wheeler, who will be returning board members. So we'll do some orientation work there. So this will be mailed in. This has to be sent in by October 31st. So we'll make sure that that gets sent in. So it's a lot of information, but much of it is to share and for you to use as a reference. If you really would take a little bit of time to look over that bond FAQ, that would be helpful and give us any feedback that you might have. So. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nicholson, but I do want to say that I want to take full responsibility for the fact that we asked our high school principals to look at graduation rate, AP, their AP participation, as well as ACT and SAT. Dr. Jones is here today, and he's going to share with you AP and graduation rates. Ms. Palmer is not here, and I think we really had some confusion because ACT and SAT are not in yet. And so we decided that we'd go forward with looking at the data that we do have. So we'll ask Ms. Palmer to come to our next meeting. But since Dr. Jones has prepared his presentation and is ready to share, I think we should go ahead and give him that honor, and then he'll come back or he'll send a designee to update us when the SAT and the ACT, those are lots of letters, ACT and SAT data come back. He can, or Ms. Rayberg or someone from his school can come give us those updates, and we'll let them partner with Ms. Palmer. So I think Ms. Palmer thought we were going to wait until we got all that data back. So she's definitely excused, and I take responsibility for that, but I would love for Dr. Jones to go ahead and share with us how Jackson County is looking.
Actually present.
Wherever, what I would do if I were you is let Mr. Summers scroll for you, and he can. Does that work? He's got it up there already, and then you stand right there where you're comfortable.
All right.
They can see it. Yeah, or you can sit down.
I don't like to sit. I like to move around. So there's going to be a lot of information on these slides. I'll be happy to provide you with this presentation if you want a copy of it. But basically, as Dr. Howard said, just want to briefly give you an update on advanced placement and graduation rate. And I also want to mention really quickly about our IB progress too. So if you can just go ahead and move forward, we'll start with advanced placement. Just as a review, advanced placement basically is a program by the College Board, the same organization that basically creates and executes the SAT. And our kiddos have a chance to study at a college level but still remain in high school. And they take a test at the end, and if, basically the test is scored on a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 scale. A 3 is generally considered passing, if you will, because that's when most of the universities and colleges begin to consider credit. Some will consider 3s, some won't. Some will consider 3s, 4s, and 5s. Some will only consider 5s, and so forth. So this first slide really kind of gives you an idea for a 5-year trend. If you see that first row there, you can see that our number of students who are participating in our AP program continues to grow. In fact, we saw a very large growth this year, or this past year, I should say. We have if you look at those last 2 columns, we gained 40 students approximately, or 50 students really. And then the exams, you can see we administered a lot of
almost
exams.
100. Oh my
yes. And so we've got a lot of kids who are really testing themselves. One of the things that always resonates with me when I see the desire for rigorous academics, well, this is one of the ways we're delivering rigorous academics to our students. And a lot of them are taking advantage of that, which is exciting. Sometimes they're seniors and they're trying to figure out, am I ready for college? And so they'll just jump right into the senior, but we also have freshmen that are taking courses. And so all the way through, they've got an opportunity. So as you can see, we had 140 students that had a 3 or higher, which is exciting. And then the percentage of our students, you can see there, 53.2. Slight drop from the year before, but if you look back from 2015 to 2016, we also saw a big increase in the number of students, and we saw a dip. So when you have a lot of students who are, perhaps trying this for the first time, sometimes it, takes them a year to figure out what is this like But we're excited that our program continues to grow and our students continue to be successful. So if you can, I want to dig down a little bit into this, so I won't go too far, but just kind of give you an idea of where these students are taking courses. Our calculus classes are a pretty big percentage of the entire pie there, as you can see. Our English language, which is given in 11th grade. AP calculus is 11th or 12th, depending on where the student is on their math journey. So you can see we have a lot of kids in that upper level, but also you can take a look at world history as a big percentage. Those are generally our 10th grade students, and our human geography is at almost 8%, so those are our freshmen. And so you're talking about freshmen who are taking college level classes as freshmen, which is really awesome, and I'll show you they're having a lot of success as well. So if you can just back there, these are our pass rates per class. I'll talk a little bit more about AP Seminar in a minute. But you can see human geography there, as I mentioned. Those are our 9th graders, and you know, their pass rates in the 70s. So the future is bright for our program. If they're coming in as freshmen and getting a passing score, it's probably means they're going to be successful all along the way. So again, that kind of gives you an idea. Some of our courses we had new teachers in, so that always is a little bit of a learning curve for the teacher. And then chemistry is a bear. That class is very difficult. That and AP Physics are two of the harder classes. So that one we're still trying to get kiddos. We're seeing some success there too for the first time, really. So that's exciting. So that kind of gives you just a snapshot of where most of our kids are passing, and then kind of down through the ranks there. All right, if you can just move forward there. We had 18.5, 17 students score 18.5s. 5 is a perfect, or perfect score, if you will. Not that they got all of the questions right, but on the scale, that is as high as they can get. Oftentimes they get 2 credits in college for those 5s. And so you can see our human geography and world history, those are our youngest students, and they're really rocking it there. And so we did something special this year, something new. And you may have heard of it over the summertime, but some pictures there we delivered to our students' homes and put those in their yards. If they were home, we, of course, rang the doorbell and congratulated them. We're kind of like, what are you doing here? And so that was really cool. We got a lot of great feedback, and then hopefully that'll inspire some of our other students to want one of those as well. And then in our building, that lower picture there is we honor those students who get 4s and 5s. And those are posted in our hallways. So again, I know my child wants to be on those signs, and so that's one of the cool things that we've had up for a while and continue to update. Again, just to honor those who have, as you know, we have a lot of families that have been here for a while, and so we have siblings that come up, and it's just neat to see them going over and say, "That's my brother or sister. I want to be up there too." So
that's good.
It's really neat. So if you can go ahead and advance here. The other thing the College Board does is recognize AP scholars, and so I'm very proud of these students who have had a sustained success over time. It's one thing to sit for one exam and nail it, but it's another thing to, throughout your high school career, really get passing scores. So the College Board recognizes several different levels, and you can see we have a lot of AP scholars, which means they scored 3 or higher in 3 or more exams. So they've passed 3 exams so far. A lot of those students still have time with us, so they could possibly move up in the ranks. AP scholars with honors, they have an average score of 3.25 on 4 or more exams, and then the scholars with distinction, it just goes up 3.5 on 5 or more exams. And then last year we had a national AP scholar, which is Colin McMenemy, who's now at Georgia Tech. I'm very proud of him. He actually had a 4 or 5 on 8 exams, which shows a remarkable consistency. So we're very proud of him. And again, when one person does it, then that inspires other people to want to do it too. And we're working on some signs for AP scholars that'll be available in our hallways as well. So it's gonna be pretty neat. Right. As I mentioned, AP Capstone we started last year.
It's a big deal.
And it is a big deal. Last year we were one of 2,000 schools that had this program in the country, and so that's exciting. Very small number, and then 9 out of the 12 students that passed that exam. So in the first year we had it, that's remarkable. So just as a reminder, the AP Capstone program is a two-pronged program. You have to take the seminar and the research, and then you also have to be consistent on those other AP exams. So to earn an AP Capstone diploma, you have to be consistent, but also take these two courses. Well, the great news is we have not, I think 2 of those are graduated, but the other 7 have the opportunity to potentially graduate this year with an AP Capstone diploma. So I hope that when we're sweltering in May, hopefully in a nice dry environment, we will be adding that distinction to some of our students. There'll be a graduate, an undergraduate, and an AP Capstone diploma student. So it's very cool. And this year, of course, we have another AP seminar group going, and we have 15 students. So last year we had 12 that took the exam. We've got 15 now, so we're slowly growing that program as well.
Great.
And so that's an exciting course that we're on. So definitely giving some kiddos some experiences, hopefully, that will benefit them now and in college or beyond. Really quick before I get to graduation rate, I just want to give you a quick update on IB. You have been very supportive of the IB process, and as you know, we've been working on this for about 5 years now. The exciting thing is we're really getting close. We started our candidacy in September, and we've been working with the consultant who's been assigned to our school, and we are sending people to trainings all over the country, really. As far away as Portland, Oregon, but also in Florida, Texas, here in Atlanta. And so that's kind of the next stage. We're also in the process of writing our course outlines. All of this is generating towards April, where we'll submit a authorization packet. And basically what will happen there is they will review that packet and decide whether or not we are ready for an authorization to visit, which will happen early the following school year, at which time they will tell us if we are a school that we can call the AP World School, the AP Diploma Program. So very exciting, lots of hard work. Our teachers have been great. We have a lot of kids who are excited, and I appreciate your support in that journey. So, all right, graduation rate. So I'm going to kind of dig into the details here. I mean, we just usually see a number, but I want to make sure that you kind of understand how our number was generated. So if you can move forward a slide here. Basically, how this works is we're talking about the number of graduates divided by what they typically will call a cohort, and sometimes in the paper it's called class size. Now that's not quite like you and I would think of as a class size. Really, it starts when they enroll as a freshman, and then we figure out where have they gone since then. Have they graduated? Have they moved? Have they just dropped out? All those things. So I'm going to kind of dig in a little bit just to kind of show you the work that we've done to try to account for these students. I'll be honest with you, this is one of the areas that I'm very passionate about, but it also can be very frustrating because some of this is not in our control. So if you can go ahead and move forward there. So the first part that we look at is who transferred out of this cohort. So who moved or otherwise found a different place to go besides Jackson County High School. So 39 students transferred to another public system. So they might have gone to Cobb County or Gwinnett County or whatever. Typically those are students who have moved, but somewhere in the state. And in this particular slide I have the number of transfers and then who we could not account for. Because sometimes they just tell us they're going to transfer. That doesn't necessarily mean they actually followed through. So in that particular group, all of them followed through. Because what we have to do is we have to verify that these folks have actually done what they've said they're doing. And that's sometimes a challenging piece because they can say, hey, I'm going to transfer. Well, we have to have documentation from this receiving school system that they have indeed shown up. And so we were able to verify all of this, so that's good. Private school, 19 of them said that they were going to go to private school. 2 of them, however, did not. And so again, that's unfortunately those folks count as dropouts for us. We actually called and were able to verify that they did not go to school at all after they left us, even though they said they intended to. So again, that's part of the frustration for us, but, you know, again, they all have their unique stories, and we did the best we could to find each story. 14 students transferred to another state. That one sometimes is hard to account for, but we were actually able to get all of those. Homeschool, we had 9, and then one had a discipline issue, and he was an East Jackson student that was at our school, and then he indicated he was going to go back to East Jackson, but then never enrolled. So it was neither school's fault, but it was one of the you know, unfortunate ways that the state looks at this rate. So we had 3 that we were unaccounted for there. So what I'm going to do is show you where all of our dropouts come from. So 3 of them are from that group. So if you can move forward to the next slide. All right, the next category is active year end. So these are students who are still with us. We have 1 ELL student. As you know, these are students who typically will come to us with little or no command of the English language. And we do our best to help them graduate in 4 years, but you know, we talk all the time about personalizing learning, and sometimes these kids need extra time. And so this young lady actually is doing very well and will graduate this year. She is still with us and doing well, but her first year when she enrolled, she was only able to take, you know, classes to learn English. That's all she could really do. So, but unfortunately, that student will count as a dropout for us. Now, we will hopefully get her in the 5-year graduation rate, but unfortunately, that's one of those things that the state has decided that those students count against us. We also had 2 special needs students. Based on their IEP will stay with us, and they're here with us again. I know both of those students very well, and quite frankly, it bothers me that our state counts those students against us. One of those kids, if you ever have a chance to come and hear our chorus, he is an amazing singer, and he has grown so much in our time, and so for that to count against us is really unfortunate, but it is what it is. So those 2 are still with us. They will graduate this year as well and go on to do great things. We have been working with Ms. Neesmith to try to figure out a way to make that experience better for the students and also to navigate the rules of the state. So hopefully that will you know, go away after a while. But I'll tell you, those kids are great kids, and you know, they're no failure in my book. Special needs student, there was 1 student who also was an IEP student, but he didn't have any stipulations on being in school another year. He just didn't make it, and we begged him to come to summer school. We also gave him all of the information to enroll in Foothills, and he chose not to. So that's one of the things that breaks my heart. 1 class shy of a diploma, and so I certainly hope that student will find a way to finish. But we did everything we could in our power to get him to finish, and we just didn't. And then this one's the one that makes me mad. We had an unfortunate situation where we had a student that was enrolled in the wrong year. She's actually a senior now, and this is her 4th year, so she should have been in a different cohort. When we reached out to the state, they said we couldn't fix that. So we identified it, we told the state, and they said, sorry, we can't fix that. And so that one counted against us. I've been working with Ms. Wilson to make sure that she can go through Infinite Campus and make sure there are no more of those. But it was one of those strange situations where someone transferred in. When they keyed in the number was the wrong year. And again, unfortunately with the state, there is no way to deal with that. And so again, I will take responsibility for that. That young lady will graduate this year, and I will shake her hand, and she's an active student in our student body. And so again, that's just one of the things that unfortunately we have to deal with. So, all right, and if you'll move forward again. Right, here are our dropouts. So we have a category that is actually called dropout. So 5 of those students were GED students. They indicated that they were going to go pursue their GED. We were able to talk to those families, and many of those students, I think 4 out of the 5 actually have gotten their GED. One of them is in college now and doing great. So, but again, unfortunately, the state counts that against us. So. Even though they are doing well, those counted against us. And then the 9 in the unknown category are kiddos who either stopped coming to school and we could not figure out where they went, or were withdrawn for lack of attendance. And we called every single one of those. We're able to get in touch with 8 of the 9, I believe. Unfortunately, those folks have just gone a different path. And one of them, the other one, I think, we believe she came from a country outside the United States, and we believe she went back, and there's just no real way to track that one down. So again, those count as dropouts as well. So basically, what we did is we, to calculate this, and I know this has kind of been a long story, but I think that sometimes you just get the percentage and you kind of look at it and go, well, okay. But it doesn't tell the whole story, so that I hope is a little bit more of the story. So the total from the previous categories that we went through was 8. The 14 dropouts gives us 22, so if you'll advance forward another one. So basically we had 246 kids graduate, the 22 dropouts, you add those two together, gives you 268. That's our class size, or cohort size. And then to get the 91.8, which is what was our official rate, you just divide those two. So that kind of gives you an idea of where that number comes from. Again, some of those, to me, I'm not ashamed about. I mean, those kids are still doing well. The clerical error probably would have got us to 92%, which would have been nice, but, we take what we can get, but, yeah, exactly. But I'm very proud of our kids. They're challenging themselves. They're doing a lot of great activities outside of school. And so sometimes, there are groups of kids that just, we can't save. And, as an educator, that you want to save them all, but you can't. And so that kind of keeps me up at night sometimes, but, I have to come to peace with it. And, some of those kids that are still at our school, like I said, I will give them a hug as they come across the stage. Sometimes it takes them a little longer to get there, but that's okay. So, all right, let's click forward there, and just want to thank you again for your continued support. I will be happy to answer any questions that you have about advanced placement or graduation rates.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for sharing that information, because us that are not in the middle of it all the time, we don't realize exactly how it's all falls out, but it's quite obvious that, there's some things are beyond our control. But we appreciate what y'all are doing.
I know that graduation rate has come up considerably
Oh,
over the last 8 or 10 years, so it's, that's a testament to the whole entire staff, but, and it's much higher than the state level as well.
Oh, yeah.
So,
we don't have anything to be ashamed of.
nothing at all, nothing at all.
I'm proud of our kids and our families and our staff. We are all working towards the same thing, and that's for our kids to be prepared for whatever it is they want to do when they leave. And it's always a work in progress, so we're going to hopefully continue to get better. And again, we appreciate your support.
Very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Jones. I'm grateful for the level of attention that each child gets, and there's a whole bunch of them that graduated, and you probably knew most of their stories as well. And I think that Mr. Nicholson will speak a little bit today about our goal of always making sure every kid has an advocate and somebody that is really pushing them along, and at all levels. But I have to really send a shout out to our high schools. Have really made a concerted effort to make sure that somebody's connecting with those kids, and we're really keeping them in the game and giving them hope and a future. So thank you for your time. You're a busy man. You're free to stay, but I hope you feel free to go at any time.
We've actually got a big volleyball game that we're going to play. Yeah, so we're going to play that other school over there, Jefferson. So we'll go over and cheer on our ladies for a little while. So.
And you had some good news to share on the softball front.
Our softball team has advanced in the state playoffs. We beat a private school, Westminster, 12-0 this afternoon.
All right.
So yeah, we'll be advancing. So we'll find out. I'm not sure who we're playing yet, but looks like we'll be like Calhoun.
Okay. Oh wow.
But we've got a great group of girls, and they're working hard, so we'll see how far they can take it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next thing, I just wanted to make sure that you are aware that we have proceeded with our student leadership program, and we had our first kickoff on Monday. It was at Bank of Ozarks. This is foundation money that Jackson EMC has placed before us, and that was a fantastic day. We have selected 22 juniors, and these students will come to Bank of Ozarks 4 times this year, and we have used the foundation money to support this work and have contracted with Growing Leaders, which is an outstanding program through Habitudes, and the kids were dressed professionally, and this program is really going to elevate their game. The application process is pretty rigorous. This is top tier kids. This is students who we want to make sure get very specific, deliberate, Carnegie level instruction in developing leadership skills, and they got that on Tuesday, and so, on Monday. It worked out very good that was a professional learning day because they'd had a week off, and they were going to be off Monday, and every single one of them showed up, even though it was another day off, and we got really positive feedback. So their next one will be in January, and I just want to send another thank you to Jackson EMC for helping us with this effort. Cheryl Paponi is helping us a great deal with this. Kids were really engaged, and I think they will stretch their leadership capacity through this program. So we will engage our juniors this year. Those juniors will roll up and have a senior program next year, and next year we'll bring in a new group of juniors. So we'll have juniors and seniors through receiving pretty stout training that I think will take them to the next level. So Dr. Blankenship was on that committee. Joe Hicks serves on that committee. Sheriff Mangum serves on that committee. Kathy Wilbanks is a part of that committee in guiding that work. So we're grateful to those folks. So,
do we have about the same number in the senior group as we do the junior group?
We don't have a senior group yet. Those juniors will roll up next year. So next year we'll get another crop of 22. So the goal is to have between 40 and 50 kids. Yeah. So the top tier at each high school of juniors and the top tier at each high school of seniors. So this year we started with juniors. We'll roll those up next year to a senior program, and then we'll bring in a new crop of juniors. So I think it's going to be a great program. You would be amazed, and we're having published, and I will bring it to you as soon as it's finished. We asked them to talk a little bit about themselves, but also what their vision for a leadership initiative is. And the students, if this country doesn't realize the hope that exists in our adolescents that we serve, one of the young men put in there that he wanted to establish he wanted to become a surgeon, actually I think like a neurosurgeon, and he wanted to develop a free hospital in places that don't have access to medical care, and so just not only high expectations but servant hearts, and so it was powerful to talk about.
Everything from local, school-based initiatives to national, international
service. Yeah, so it's fantastic. All right, as we started with community-based accountability and talked a little bit about our advanced ed program, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nicholson.
Sure. So accountability comes at many levels for public education, and accreditation is one of those. And our commitment to you is to just monthly keep you up to speed. Certainly in January, we will have the system quality factors that I shared last month. We'll already rated those out. We've gone through a process where district leaders, principal, building leaders, schools will have completed all this work, and then we will share that with our board, because we do need you to become very well versed in perception of those various levels. But until we get that, there's no point in sharing that just yet. But that's why we just shared the 7 system quality factors. But what we will be doing this next month, or towards the end of October into November, is a critical part of it, because that community-based accountability that Dr. Howard mentioned certainly has to involve community, has to involve your stakeholders. And I think I mentioned that advanced ed this time around doesn't feel so compliance driven. It's beneficial. For anybody that's a new building leader, it's critically beneficial, because it really forces you to pause, reflect, have conversations you might or might not have had, look at some data. But for us too, just every 5 years to stop and take a real critical eye and say, are we doing what we said we were going to do 5 years ago with our strategic plan? And what I appreciate is it's a much more flexible process. In years past, you rated yourself out 1 to 5, and you wanted a 5, of course, so you try to fabricate or create or dig really deeply to find evidence that you're 5. They assume your accreditation because we're already accredited. And we've done nothing unethical to violate that accreditation. So the whole approach has shifted, that they assume your accreditation and they just want to know where you are in your journey. And so part of that is we are required to collect some stakeholder feedback, and you have 3 copies. I'm definitely not going to go over each of these, but I do think it's important for you to know the types of questions that will be asked. I do want you to know that we are exercising the greatest level of flexibility that advanced ed is giving us, meaning that we already have to do parent surveys with CCRPI. We already have to do a variety of, that's the climate survey. It would be a lot easier if we gave the parent survey, but we're trying to be sensitive to how often do we tap into our parents. As Dr. Howard already shared, we've done some surveys, we've had some conversations, and we will use everything she shared in conjunction with our climate, our required state surveys. But what we don't have required by the state anymore are student surveys that are specific to their instructional experience. That used to fall underneath the teacher evaluation system, Teaks and Leaks. I don't have a problem with any of these questions. I mean, they're really quite good questions. They're not about the teacher. They're really about the experience. They're anonymous. They'll be completely online. We've set it up to where there's a link when they log into their Chromebook, and they have, I think we showcased what the student portal looks like, where they just have a button, and we can open it up for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, however the schools want to do. We don't have to shut anything down. We don't have to change any instructional plans for the day, and we'll just have them go in. The students will take the survey, and it goes into Advanced Ed's database, which then what we'll do in teaching and learning is be able to look at that, review that, and go back and say, well, if we rated ourselves on some of these district quality factors, and we said that it's a highly embedded practice, but we got feedback from teachers and we got feedback from students that indicates that it's not quite as embedded as we thought, well, then we probably need to adjust the way that we embedded it. So it's really a triangulation of internal stakeholders. We've already started that work. They're still internal because they're teachers and students, but district, and then the teachers and students with that final piece of the parental feedback that we received last spring. So certainly if you have any questions about it, I just, again, somebody says I'm taking a survey, I want you to know why we're taking the survey.
Is that all elementary school?
It starts in third grade. And it's probably wise, because if you look at it, you start, some of the kids,
some first and second grade struggle a little bit.
And honestly, too, if you had a group of third grade students that you thought were going to struggle,
that's a good question.
Which one?
I work on real life problems.
Kindergarten.
Now, real life problems.
And so something that you could do, and that I would advise, we're going to show this with the principals next week, is that if you felt like your students would have a hard time answering them authentically, this is not like a high stakes testing. You could pull out a set of Chromebooks, you could read the question and explain what it means, and then let the kids click on it. You're not going to go around and tell them what to click, but, and I think that's probably quite wise to do in any third grade classes. I think as you look at them fourth and fifth, but again, it's not like testing, so if a kid has a question, you can answer it, give examples. But great question. So again, all online, and our goal is to have all that done by mid-November so that we can use that data to continue to answer the system quality factors and the district quality factors. We have next on the agenda monthly attendance report. So
We do, and
Sure.
Yeah.
So you have something that I think we've done in the past.
We have done this in years past. The board's familiar with it. We had just gotten away from doing it. We wanted to bring it back especially considering we're looking at community-based accountability, and that did seem to be something that was important to families.
Right, and you all probably already know this, but attendance is a very important factor in student success, and there's lots of research out there that says even if a student misses 5 days of school for whatever reason, excused or unexcused, it negatively impacts their success in school. So,
and it's hard to make up that.
it is. So. It's very hard. So we always had a saying at my school: if you miss school, you miss out. So our goal is to have students here. So what we've provided for you is by school and grade level, the average daily attendance. So you'll see probably the easiest thing to look at is out the last column, the first month of percent of attendance, and then on the back side you've got second month.
So we have Gum Springs and North Jackson, who are our winners, I think. They're not highlighted, but you can see.
For the first month, it was
Gum
Springs,
yeah.
and for the second month, it was North Jackson. And I think our schools kind of enjoy this too. It gives them a little bit of competition, see who can have the highest attendance rate.
Do we have a sickness outbreak or something?
Yeah, we are gonna have to definitely look at East Middle.
We are.
That I'm not sure that's if that's not a calculation error. We would probably want to.
Yeah, it very well may be. So we'll look into that. But overall, for the whole school system, about over a 96%.
That's still pretty good.
Attendance rate,
Yeah.
which is really good.
Very good.
Last week was a lesson for us.
You remember that next July, Mr. Chronic. I'm just teasing you.
October's always hard.
October's a hard month, yeah, so busy wise.
I'll turn it back over to you.
Yes, the next item I'm really excited about, I mentioned this last month, but now it's official. And this very much ties along with the community-based accountability, and that we do have a state assessment system. We absolutely, as Dr. Jones shared, I mean, we strive for excellence, we want accountability, but there's sometimes when the state system just doesn't necessarily match the way that we would prefer to assess. And so we're not thumbing our noses or anything like that, but we're trying to create something that we believe is a better representation of Jackson County. And so I believe I mentioned that we applied for an innovative assessment pilot program with Clayton, Floyd, Jasper, Marietta, Sidney, and Fulton. Well, the state has approved it. And so that's very exciting. We are now one of 3 pilot programs that the state's approved. Next steps, it's the state has said, okay, we really value the work that you're talking about doing, and just as a refresher, what we would do is we would slowly phase in. This year is exactly what we're already doing, next year is exactly what we're already doing, but subsequent years we would start using MAP instead of milestones, so that you have 3 opportunities to demonstrate your proficiency. Either it's more aligned with the students, the whole personalization conversation we have, that the MAP is an adaptive test, so you're truly giving a test that matches your abilities and my abilities. You're not just giving the same test across the board. I go on Monday back to the Capitol because we have to learn a little bit about what the state's next steps are, and essentially what happens is the state has to apply in December to the U.S. Department of Education, because they've opened up the window again, and they will propose that our pilot is a pilot that they want to include for the U.S. Department of Education, which is underneath the Every Student Succeeds Act. If that gets, we'll find out what I know now. I'll know more next time we get together. But what I know now is that likely we'll find out in this summer of 19, or summer of 18 rather. No, 19. No, summer of 19. It is 18. Of whether or not that's approved. Our application, I mean, it was a very strong application. It has a much greater alignment than the other applications that I've seen. The statistics that are required by ESSA are completely in our application. It's just a matter of whether or not some of the fine details, because the state is doing it differently than the U.S. Department of Education requested that states do it. We're kind of doing a grassroots up, where the state was, the ESSA says, as a state you determine something, you set it, and then determine who's going to participate. So it depends on whether or not the U.S. Department of Education will acknowledge that. But just wanted you to know that it's been recognized by the state. So even if it goes nowhere right now, the fact that our state is recognizing that this is the type of work that school systems want to go, that they want to do. The other reality behind this is that the state can change our assessment system. I mean, that's a much bigger topic, but if you get enough people rallying around this type of conversation, and they say, well, if that model is good, then why don't we go to a model that looks like that? So it's not time wasted. It's a big conversation starter, but I'm hopeful that we actually go further.
It did make the news a couple weeks ago. I think it was like 3 weeks ago I saw it on there, and I think it was 18 school systems that had applied for it as well. So I don't know, it's only 3 out of the ones that applied.
That's a great question. You can, all of them underneath consortiums of sorts.
Right.
So ours had the 7, and then Barrow County is a affiliated partner. And so you have a total number of school systems, but you only actually have the 3 pilots that have
okay.
But each one has more than one school system.
Okay.
Mr. Nicholson, go ahead, please.
No, well, I'm just gonna, you said, if this does go through, it would be implemented. When did you say?
This would be year 1, because the way we've written it is year 1 is what we're already doing.
Yeah.
And so next year would be year 2. And what we're doing in year 1 and year 2 is we're really working with the folks that write MAP and develop MAP to make sure that we have something that is Georgia specific, and we'd start piloting behind the scenes a little bit, making sure that when a child takes the set, because right now we take MAP in fall, winter, and spring, and what we need them to be able to demonstrate for us is that if you take an assessment in fall and you demonstrate in your 3rd grade and you demonstrate proficiency on 5 math standards, well then you shouldn't have to keep demonstrating proficiency again. And MAP does that, but it doesn't necessarily report that out on a state proficiency level. So that's the type of stuff that year two would also be starting to look at science as an option, because they have a science assessment. We don't give that in Jackson County, but we could. And year two would also be developing out what could this look like at high school instead of some of the end of course tests. So instead of one shot, they could do the same thing. They could take, so 2 academic years from now, you count this one right now, would be the first year that we would actually start, that we would phase out milestones.
We wouldn't have to do milestones, because we're gonna have to continue that for this year and
next year.
year.
And part of that too is why that makes our application so much stronger, is ESSA will not accept something if you don't show comparability. And the other pilots honestly are not showing that. In fact, some of them are saying we're not giving milestones at all. Wait, that's not an option. It's just, I mean, I guess it is, but it's not gonna be good for your school system.
That's their option.
Yeah, and so for us to show, we're still doing the work that is required, but we're also showing you that there's something else that we value at a higher degree, because we can use that data in real time to modify the instructional experience for students versus, I mean, Dr. Howard mentioned CCRPI. We're just getting that now from last year.
Which is compared to actually the year before, so
Exactly.
it's really 2-year-old data.
So we already know all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
But what we want to know is what our kids are doing right now.
You've got to have a benchmark, basically is what you're showing there,
Exactly.
is to whether you are comparable to a legitimate test,
Yes,
the milestone.
very much so.
Now, speaking to that, though, just to make sure, the MAP, NWEA, is a nonprofit, probably the most research-based administrative assessments that exist. And it is given in 50 states, and it is highly, internationally, it is highly normed. And so if you think about the Georgia milestones, is only given in the state of Georgia. It is only aligned to Georgia standards. And so the benefit, and the MAP is on a continuum. So if you think about our mindset of learning, for so long everything has been driven by time, and learning is flexible. With a continuum of learning, like Todd said, a third grader may be doing 6th grade work, and guess what? On the MAP, they can just keep going. On the milestones, if you're in the 3rd grade, you take a 3rd grade test. Okay, you top out on the 3rd grade test, but that doesn't tell you anything about where this kid's skill is. So if you're really thinking about the way our world is evolving, kids should never stop learning. Time should be flexible, and learning should be constant. So I'm very excited about this. Not because we don't want to be accountable. In fact, we want to be more accountable. Kids should always be learning, and they should always be growing. So I'm really excited.
When we talk about growth as a state, it's really achievement compared year after year. This really is growth.
This
so
is
when you talk about
constant growth. Yep.
more rigorous accountability system, when you look at MAP and you don't see the growth, it's not there as measured by that instrument. But when you see it, it is there as measured by that instrument. So it is an increased amount of accountability.
Yep.
The other thing I just wanted to mention to you is that I think some of you even brought to our attention that some of our teachers were starting to feel a little overwhelmed with a lot of professional learning. We hear, we listen. Everything that we design as a team is intended to support our teachers, and it's kind of a good problem. We have literacy support, we have so much support we haven't had in the past, but that meant we had a lot of professional learning, a lot going on at one time, and so we significantly modified the plan for our October 8th Professional Learning Day. Really gave teachers choice. This was largely more impactful on elementary because they were working on the units studying literacy and Pontus and Pinnell and then math, and so we gave them choice. We had about 67% of our participants do the online feedback, and I mean, it was fantastic. It wasn't bad the other time. It was good feedback, but the open-ended stuff there's a lot going on, and so thank you for bringing to our attention, and thank you for the teachers who shared that, because again, we are here to serve and support, and that model. I would say I don't think there's a perfect model for professional learning, but we are trying to find a balance, and that's all what it is when we spend money on resources, we've got to provide the professional learning, but I think that this was a matter of success for sure. So as you hear things, certainly continue to bring to our attention, because this is the day for our teachers.
I know we have a packed agenda, and I don't want to belabor it, but do you mind speaking very briefly to Youth Science and the 612 effort that's happening?
Sure, yeah, that's pretty exciting. So that Youth Science...
What's funny about that?
Briefly. There's been some great conversations. I'm keeping track of my times. Keeping track of my times out there.
You preach it.
Briefly, just not in his agenda, right?
We love it. You just
Briefly
can't
and
get away
two
from it.
Youth Science Yes, you science is not about science. This really should be the science of you. It's an aptitude and ability assessment that
And interest.
and interest, absolutely. That we challenged, Dr. Howard and I challenged all of our middle and high school teachers at the previous professional learning day to take it themselves. It's kind of a risk because a lot of them found out they probably shouldn't be teachers. Not necessarily
Just
true.
joking.
Not true. But it, actually what it does, it shows you a whole range of things based on your skills, your interests. It's a little bit of an IQ, problem solving, interest inventory, and so they all took it. I mean, everybody took it. And then what they did this past on the 8th is to say, all right, and it's not meant for the teachers, it's meant for the students.
Student
But when we are going to ask our students to experience something, this made logical sense. Because once you see the feedback and the data that it gives about you, then all of a sudden if you think, if I had that for my students, so we talk about personalizing the experience, you now know the strengths, the interest, and when we talk about our goal of having every child every student have an adult who serves as a mentor, advocate, and graduation coach. Well, what better way to do that than to be able to match students and teachers with their interests? I mean, academics is our goal, but if we can build those relationships, we can create experiences. It's what we talk about with Empower, that let's not just put some CTAE programs over here and call it Empower. Let's integrate CTAE into the math, the science, the social studies underneath the umbrella of a medical center or underneath the umbrella of a manufacturing or logistics or whatever that might be. So our teachers were really excited about the results. And so what they did on the 8th is they met and they started talking about how can we use this when we give it to our students. And so they all either have a plan or developing their plan for how they're going to make sure that their students take it. It does take about an hour and a half. I mean, it's not a short assessment, but and there's a couple stories of people actually when they looked, they was like, this isn't right, this isn't me, this can't be. And then as they start to really think about it and reflect, I'm like, well, I do like those things, and I guess I am good at those things. And so it's a bit of a wake-up call, but the idea is that if we can do that young enough, if we can do that at an early enough age for our students, that we don't have to wait until they're in college trying to figure out what they want to do, incurring college debt. And it's not that it's going to guarantee that everyone knows exactly what they want to do, but it gives them, but it's at least better than well, that's what my dad did, or that's what my sister did, and anything that we can do to then create experiences in high school and middle school for them to explore those opportunities so that they can determine, no, that one wasn't for me, or that's kind of interesting. So that's the tool that we'll be able to use to really begin to personalize and actually build out programs too. Like we already have a program, but how do we enhance that program based on the feedback and the data we get from our students?
Perfect. So all of our ninth graders will be taking it, and they'll get a report, and it doesn't prescribe what they have to be when they grow up, but it gives them a range of interest, and so it'll be great. And then next year we'll be able to offer it, and maybe this year to all of our 8th graders. But the state provides this. It's a free tool. It's a free tool, and it's outstanding, very research based. So it's very good. All right, Dr. Blankenship.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't be too brief. I'm just
I'll
kidding.
try. So we have an enrollment overview for you for this month. You can see we continue to tick up a little bit. I will tell you that we've had a few additional enrollments this week. Maysville has added 7 students just this week, and so they're experiencing a boom up there. I'll speak a little bit to what this enrollment increase is compelling us to need to do at one of our schools in just a moment. So that is there for your review. And then next we have our personnel list. And
It's towards the back.
I'll highlight on here for you a couple of things. One, we have been able to secure an ROTC instructor for Jackson County High School. Very, very highly qualified gentleman who I think is going to be a beautiful fit and replacement for Colonel Abbott. Although I'm not sure anybody could quite fully replace Colonel Abbott, but
Kind of like Colonel Taylor, yeah.
I think this gentleman will do a fine job. But as I spoke to increased enrollment earlier, at North Jackson, we have a need to add a kindergarten class. We have our kindergarten classes, we had 3 that were very large, by standards of a kindergarten class. And we also had a number of students that were identified for early intervention program, EIP. And so by adding an additional class, we're able to better reduce the class size and better serve the needs of those students. So
We actually earn that class too, because you get the reduced class size.
exactly. So we were actually able to get that class developed, and it's a beautiful situation. And like Dr. Howard said, will earn that position pretty much immediately for next year. So we ask for your approval of that position. We also have a need to add a second grade there for the same reasons. High class size, a lot of students who need those early intervention services, and so while we don't have someone yet to put into that position, we would ask for your blessing to search for that position. And I will say that the individual that is filling, that we're asking for approval to fill the kindergarten position was a paraprofessional with us that's certified. So we did look beyond internally, but she was the best fit for that position and has worked in our pre-K program for a good while. And so she's very qualified and will do a great job. And you notice we have a retirement at the bottom for the end of this calendar year. And so we'll be working on that.
North Jackson is going to continue to see growth. I just got an update today from Ms. Garbett at the Planning Commission that Seasons of Pendergrass is just exploding. And it price range brings families of small children likely. And so we may be facing some significant needs at North Jackson.
And then the final piece that I want to share with you, we are always looking for ways to improve the safety and security of our schools, not just for our students, but for our employees as well. I'm sure you're familiar that we have mandated training that we have to comply with every year for all of our employees through the state. So we are, I want to provide this information on a solution that we are going to move forward with that will address both of those pieces, the compliance piece as well as safety and security. So you have a packet here, and I'm not going to go through every piece of material in here, but I do want to highlight for you that Safe Schools is a leading web-based staff training, and it provides both that compliance management piece as well as safety and security. It's specifically designed for school employees, and it really offers us a very robust library of courses that we can offer to our employees. And what that's going to do for us is not only is it going to take care of the compliance piece, like I said, but it also is going to help us to address safety and security. So, for instance, workers' comp claims are a reality in any business, and we certainly have our fair share of those. Even one workers' comp situation where we have an employee get injured is too many. And so the more we can do to educate our employees on the safe way to practice their particular tasks, the more likely we are to reduce the number of workers' comp claims that we have. That benefits us, but it also benefits our employees because they're not having to miss work and recuperate from an injury. So we have 3 pieces that we want to move forward with. There is and I put those on the top on the left-hand side. So there's the online staff training and tracking. There is a school bus safety component, which I think will work really well with our school bus drivers and monitors, and it will help us as we implement our master driver status that we are working on with our school bus drivers. And then there's an incident tracking system that really is a more efficient way for our schools to to enter those incident reports as they happen, so it'll reduce the time and be a more efficient way for Ms. Kendricks to get those claims and get them processed quicker. On the right-hand side, you have the course library that is offered, and I want to just highlight a couple of courses. You'll see at the top, there's also emergency management courses, and this is a real need in every school system, not just ours. But there are active shooter courses, crisis response and recovery, threat assessment. Then there are also, if you'll turn and look on the other pages, just the second page, there's a whole slew of different courses like ladder safety, things that our custodial staff, our maintenance staff, and even other employees can benefit from. So we can really personalize training for staff to get them what they need. If we have incidents that occur that we need to provide retraining for, then we can assign specific courses to those staff members, and that helps both them as far as the retraining, and it helps us to show that we have tried to address the situation as well. Some of the benefits of this for us, you'll see on the next page. There's a very proven return on investment, and so while you know, there is a subscription cost for this, we will reap that back in addition to other savings, workers' comp costs and other types of fees that we have associated with that. So that's all there for your review. And then there's also a list of other school systems in the state. That this is a nationwide company. They serve school systems all over the nation, but you can see there's quite a list of Georgia customers there. Atlanta Public Schools, Carroll County Schools, several here in our area as well, Clark County, Gilmer County. So if you have any questions, Mr. Gilbert or I will be happy to answer those. Josh Patton can probably answer questions, as well as Mr. Farmer on the bus safety piece.
It's very reasonable considering the return. Very reasonable.
$8.50 per full-time employee, is that right?
Yes, and I believe we got a discount on that.
Yeah, I think the whole package was only $13,000.
I think we actually got a discount, a 10% discount on that, so it ended up being $750, I believe. Here, I can tell you exactly.
Ms. Dodge can probably tell, we use general fund money, or our plan is to use general fund money and make it a part of the professional learning within already existing budgets for maintenance, custodians, and transportation. So it's not additional funds we're asking for. We're just allocating our PL money basically to that.
Right. Yeah, it ended up being $765 a person. And then one other thing I didn't mention is we're also able to do customized modules. So in our compliance solution that we currently have, they will build a custom module for us that addresses our local policies and procedures. We're able to do the same thing through this.
Very good. Thank you. I'm excited, and it is very well worth it, and got good reports from people that are using it.
A lot of companies are requiring that now. I know we've gone through with my company anti-harassment training and safety forklift training and so forth, different things. And you may not be totally involved with it, but if you can streamline it to individual departments and put that as a requirement.
Yes, and even for those employees who just want to grow professionally,
sure.
we can use this for that purpose as well.
Absolutely. Very good. All right, Anna, I'll let you and Aaron share the good news about our financial update. Continues to be positive. Our SPLOST is the first topic, and I think that's probably on top of your stack.
Yes. Thankfully, it keeps going up. I mean, there was a little dip from last month, but
year over
year, almost $70,000 increase, and this month did, put our 12-month average, did bump it up over 600,000, so.
That's good, right?
Yep, so it's good stuff and continues to be very, very stable at a very high level, so it's good to see with our growth and our, upcoming facility needs.
Just 5 years ago, we were averaging 475.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Amazing. And then if you wanna look at the financials, the first thing I wanna point out is that, we are at 25% of the year complete, and overall, our expenses are at 26%, which is a little higher than where we are at this point in the year. But you have to remember that, there's a lot of one-time cost renewals that happen in the first 2 or 3 months of the year, and so that will definitely even itself out as we go on through the remaining months of the year. And I actually drilled down a little bit further and looked at it, and this time last year we were at 25.4, which rounded to 25, and this year we're at 25.6. So it rounds up to 26% on here. So it's not that much off from where we were last year at this time of the year. So everything's looking good on that, and we are still holding stable with our fund balance, and we should start seeing a little bit of new tax money start trickling in next month. So tax bills are going out. Got a call from Candace that everything got signed off and approved from their auditors, and she'll be working on getting those bills out.
Did we get the collection of
Yes.
the systems worked out?
We did.
Good.
It's 2% across the board.
Good.
So they rolled it back. That was a
Yep.
good thing to accomplish. Yes. Great question. Yep, very good question. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll continue to monitor that. Josh came in, so Josh and I can tag team on this a little bit and talk through. I don't want to steal your thunder, you know. So as you know, really, Josh has lived most of his breathing life of the summer at West Jackson Middle School and trying to keep that project. And as with any renovation project, it has had its challenges, and so want to just remind you, because we're asking for a budget, a SPLOST budget item on Monday night, an action item, and just to remind you that our original budget was 6.5, and then you agreed to expanding the additions, which was the media center, really just absorbing some space in there. We expanded the band room significantly, and a beautiful addition to the cafeteria. Yeah. And so the cafeteria has an entire wall that is basically floor to ceiling windows that looks out to a very nice nice green space, and so it makes it, even though it's not a lot of space, it certainly feels much more spacious as well. So but anyway, the total budget was 7 point.
It really does. It changed the whole room.
The experience is much better, much better. Yeah. So the original total budget was 7.1, and as I started with anything that you start working on, it's so the first thing that I don't know that it was the first thing, Josh. I guess the fireproofing was probably the first domino.
How much more did the fire marshal cost us?
Right now, paid out to date, and I don't have it all broke down yet to the fire marshal. I'm thinking somewhere around $450. Paid out to date, we're about $530 over the original contract. The bulk of that is fire marshal, because we still got about $280,000 that we haven't done yet in the original contract. Yeah.
For the fire marshal.
Oh, the bulk of that. Yeah. The soil conditions in the parking lot it was pretty.
Why don't you tell them about that? Were you
We're not putting in a septic tank, so
No, but the asphalt.
Yeah, so the subsurface and the underneath the existing asphalt was, it was horrible. Y'all remember what the parking lot looked like.
Sinking. It was sinking.
So we ended up having soil cement the whole basically everything out there that got asphalt on it. Because of poor surface conditions. That was the cheaper option versus digging out dirt and filling with rock. But we ended up on parking lot where 120 to 150,000 on that.
More.
Than what we had
Original.
originally budgeted for the parking lot. And I can get all that broke out, I just didn't have it on this. We did get, so we're extremely close now, we got the CO the other day.
The
this week.
permanency.
Permanent. Yeah, so that was really good. But, you know, unfortunately, with all the things that came up in that project, it did.
So what you're gonna see is that we're asking for, and this includes so you realize that we took out the finishes on the classrooms to be able to phase it in like we did.
40 of the classrooms.
Right,
yes.
the 40 classrooms. So the overage that you see there from the original budget includes adding paint, flooring, and the marker boards, casework, and furniture to finish out the rest of the classrooms as well. So while we're asking for 1.5, which is a significant amount of money, it will finish the entire renovation. The 40 classrooms were not in the original. That's
No,
right,
they
they
were
were
not.
not. They were not. So that will finish that. Josh, you did 6.
We did
which
6
is
over fall
over
break.
fall break, and they turned out really, really good.
Does that redo the bathroom floors so they match?
Paint them.
That sticks out like a sore thumb.
It does. We've explored some options on that. And of course, it's very expensive to take that up, and so we
That gray epoxy didn't look too bad though.
the epoxy seems to be holding up very well. We have tried that in 2 of them, and it looks great. And so far, it's holding up really well. So that may be a good alternative to get rid of the McDonald's style.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Otherwise, I think everybody's been pretty excited about everything over there.
It looks good.
The kids are, it's great to see them using the spaces that we put in the hallways when we put the lockers out. It's, there's constant movement everywhere in that building now when you go in there. It's pretty cool.
A lot of engagement.
A lot of excitement around it.
So, and you can see by their numbers, they're not shrinking. I mean, they're just going to continue. So that's a good thing that you all push forward to go ahead and do those additions to help with the lunchroom and the media center and the band room. So if you all have any questions or you want to come meet with us and talk a little bit more about the details, please feel free. I am grateful that our SPLOST has continued. That does make it a little bit more palatable. It is not what I would like to bring to you, but I think it's what we have to meet the needs. But there's not even a dollar amount on here that could account for the amount of time and energy that Josh has personally spent there. And so thank you. And a lot of people around this table, I mean, the couple of weeks before, I mean, I think all of us, David, everybody was here Saturday and Sunday and doing some work. So it was a team effort for sure. So then the next item on the agenda, and Josh, you can give us an update even from the meeting that you just came from, but as you know, we were scheduled to have our, you all agreed that we would break out the grading package from the overall package because we want to wait and see how our community's response is on the bond. And so we broke out the grading, and after visits from potential contractors, they decided that we would postpone the actual bid date from October 9th to October 23rd, which is probably a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
And you probably want to speak a little bit to the folks who came to survey or take a look at the land.
We did have a great turnout at our pre-bid meeting. Several pavers and several different graders that are interested in doing the project, and we've had a lot of interest since then. There were still a few things that we needed to get clarification on. some questions they had asked, and waiting on permits as well was the reason we decided to push the date out even a little further, which, I think made everybody a little more comfortable.
And we're not in a rush now. I mean, we don't want to delay it by any stretch, but.
And then, of course, I met with Jackson County Water and Sewer today and at their board meeting, and we had a good outcome on that. So,
Great. Great.
They were headed in the right direction.
We were very concerned on our first application for connection fees that it was quite a bit higher than really the industry norm across the state, but we came back and provided some flow rates, and they were willing to work with us, so we're grateful to the board. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for going.
All right, it was great. As Dr. Howard said, we did calculations on our existing schools, and they had actually done some as well, and our calculations matched theirs almost to the T, so it was very good. And right now we're about 45% of what our original fees.
Fantastic, fantastic. Very, very good. So we'll be looking towards October 23rd, and we don't know, but I think the board can expect that grading project is really pretty expensive. But,
Yeah, I guess
Not 15.
between 10 and 12. Yes.
it's a pretty unique topography. I'm trying to, what is it, 900,000 square feet of dirt they're going to have to move at least?
900,000 yards.
Yards, yeah.
Yeah. That too. There was a little bit of discussion between contractors the other day whether it was 900 or 1.1 million.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a big number.
They said 1 million
We
yards
had
of dirt.
to.
Oh, yeah.
And it's we don't have any rock issues from any of the tests. There was some soft rock that nothing that a backhoe won't take care of. No, we shouldn't. There's a bit of concern for some water, but
No water. You get a lot of water.
yeah. But other than that,
We did meet with Kevin Poe, the county manager, and are working with them on a traffic study for the intersections there. So we're looking at that. We know that we have an impact, and so but we're holding pretty steadfast to making sure that each agency pulls up their end of the deal, and they've partnered with us on that. So we'll get there.
Definitely should be at the stoplight at Tennis Skeleton Road. It's dangerous there, nothing there now. I'm gonna go over that hill.
where at?
It's Skeleton.
Skeleton.
332. So.
State road and a county road, so it's going to be interesting to
Yeah, and then
see.
There's issues there with
Yep.
the DOT.
Yep.
But
We're going to have to keep working on that. Don't disagree with you at all. And
we
it's,
don't.
it's,
You don't need another South Jackson situation that you had right there with bypass. I mean, that was dangerous enough.
absolutely agree.
At this point right here, you may as well just bite the bullet just to begin with.
There's some pretty straight legislation though that says a county of a state highway, that's the responsibility of the state, and so but that's not really where it's falling right now. So we're gonna have to keep working on. That's right. We'll have to work on that. So.
Can we do that? So I have a meeting on Friday with the county to review the plans, and we should have a permit sometime next week.
Great. Perfect.
Potentially.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Patton. I'm glad you made it back, and appreciate you going and working. Grateful to the Water Authority for working with us too. That's great.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Farmer, World of Transportation.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
have to celebrate it. Continues to be a great success this year, and I'm very appreciative to the hard work that your team is putting forth.
Appreciate that. I want to start with our bus patrol pilot program, and it's something that we had discussed a couple meetings ago. We did sign a pilot agreement with bus patrol. Those cameras were installed October the 8th, last Monday, and we so far have had one incident that will have to be confirmed by the company, but happened yesterday afternoon. So this data will be collected for approximately a month and a half, once we collect that data, then, we will sit down with our local law enforcement, court systems, and, show them the data. It was important that we gather data from our own county. And, that's not to catch anybody, not to do anything, but it's more to make people aware that when that stop arm comes out, that we need everybody to stop. So, in saying that, this will allow us to have that data to move forward with any questions. Next is our new, school bus delivery progress. We are very, excited is not the word, we are ecstatic. We have received, 2 of our 4 bond buses. Appreciate Ms. Adam making sure that everything was in line so we could receive those. And, hopefully, the other 2, the special ed bus and the regular bus, will be here tomorrow. Those are our last 2 that we're waiting on. The other 2 did come in early. 2 I just mentioned were held up in the AC shop. It's not uncommon, but did happen. So we're very excited. The other 2 are on the road. Ricky Sanders, who's been with us 37 years, received the first one. I think we made his year. He was extremely appreciative. And Kelly Brown received the second one. I do want to say it's very important that we recognize this is a landmark for Jackson County. I'm very appreciative to our board, to our superintendent for supporting this. This is something that we've never had in Jackson County, a regular education bus, air conditioning. I can tell you this, it's got 126,000 BTUs on it, and it will cool. I should say it will be very cold, but it's very comfortable. It's amazing.
Is that rooftop mounted or is that coming off?
It's at the bulkhead in the front and back, but it's slimline. Okay. So you don't have that big compartment. If you look at our old buses, that are especially the compartment comes out and you bump your head when you raise up. These are slimline to fit in. So one of the benefits of doing that from the factory. Very excited, but I appreciate us moving forward and setting the standard here. And I will say that I'm very excited about the 50 that are coming. October, the first week in December, excuse me, don't want to say October. But the first week in December, ICA National has assured me that they would all be here. So hopefully that will happen. Going out on a limb there saying that, I'm looking more toward it before break of December, but hopefully they will. I'm very excited about that, and we just have to figure out all who they go to, and we're working on that process currently. But thank you. I want to thank our community, everybody in Jackson County. It is a big step for us, but it is I think it's a step in the right direction. The driver fatigue, the children getting off the bus, 90 degrees outside is 100 degrees on the bus.
So we can start July 15th now.
Exactly.
Just kidding.
Well, no, not all of it's gonna be here.
Just kidding.
We can do that, but I need about 75.
Why even
stop? We can make that happen. But I do want to say, of course, not everybody will receive an air conditioning bus, but this is a big start.
Yeah.
Counties start 2 or 3. We're starting at 50, actually 52, 53, excuse me. So very exciting. And I just want to say thank you. Cannot thank our board, our superintendent, and our community. But
It's an efficient way to do it too, because we're not spending. We had already we're just getting it front loaded, so
That's
it's we're spending the same money we had budgeted for. We're just that's good.
I wish those bond buses would be air conditioned, but they're not. They're just brand new, or are they air?
yes, ma'am, they
They
are
are?
air conditioned. Yes.
Oh, great, great,
I
okay.
talked to Anna and we were able to work that out.
Oh, good.
They are air conditioned.
That's great.
I think we'll have to go that way going forward now. Unless we
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. And just pray those air conditioners work.
I think we set that standard.
Yeah, that I did ask that.
Yeah.
But it's a good problem there. Moving on to our school bus poster contest, we did have 2 winners at North Jackson Elementary and 1 from West Jackson Middle School that were chosen to move on to the state level. They did win for our county, and those entries have been sent to the state. We will be recognizing those individuals at our our Monday night board meeting. Principals are very excited, but also the children and their parents are extremely excited also. So appreciate everybody that participated, and look forward to that. Our School Bus Safety Week is coming up. It is from October 22nd through October 26th. We will be celebrating our bus drivers and bus monitors all week for everything that they do, keeping our children safe and making sure that they get to and from school. October the 22nd is actually Bus Driver Appreciation Day, and we will be, unknown to our drivers, if they're watching, they're going to find out.
Oh, yeah.
But we are going to have a breakfast for our bus drivers. So we will be cooking, and I invite you, if you're able to. We'll be eating around 8 o'clock, and drivers are coming in after their routes, and we're just going to have a great time and celebrate our drivers and give them a good breakfast. So we appreciate our drivers. I do want to say a special thank you to all of them this morning, and our office staff.
Absolutely.
You know, we had conditions last night. We weren't really going to know what we were going to wake up to this morning. They set the task. We've been up since 4 o'clock this morning, looking, checking, but they got up and they did their normal routine, despite running into a couple limbs, and pretty much one power outage, but Jackson MC was on top of that.
Absolutely.
We appreciate that. So it was a great morning, but I really want to say thank you. Thank you for all of them. Greatly appreciate them and what they do, and they just go above and beyond.
They sure do. It was fun listening to them this morning.
Yeah.
I think I can run over this limb. I'm gonna keep
going. So, you know,
don't we get out and pull it out of the
going
road.
down the road and it's blocked. That's a tough call in pitch black dark. So, but they met the challenge, and I want to say thank you. But Dr. Howard, Board, thank you so much once again for all your support.
Thank you. Appreciate you. All that you've done. So we have provided you with a packed agenda and a lot of information. So that is all that we have at this time, except for a request for an executive session to discuss real estate.
And we did have a request. Have a motion to move that we move to executive session. Second. All in favor? Aye. We shall return.